Now we're going to talk about our interim attorney's fees request template. Attorney's fees, a subject near and dear to our hearts. And our clients need them so that they can prosecute their suits. There's different types of interim attorney's fees requests in family law. The easier one is during a divorce. And if you are seeking interim attorney's fees during a divorce, you need to show the court that there is some pot of money to get the funds from. So you need to show them, here's some community 401k or a community brokerage account, something of that nature, and then the court can award them. So that's not as difficult. The other type of interim fees is in a modification, and this is harder because the parties aren't married. Maybe they were never married. So there's not a community pot, there's no community funds, and therefore the standard is higher before a court can award them. If you want interim attorney's fees in a modification, you need to show that the safety and welfare of the children is dependent on the interim fees. And it can't be past, it has to be future. So for example, you can't say, well, I need interim fees because my client owes me $10,000 and I'm not going to stay in this lawsuit unless that $10,000 is paid. No, it has to be future forward looking. So you have to be able to put on evidence that if this client doesn't get interim fees and isn't able to move forward in the case, then these children's safety and welfare will be at risk because we need money in order to go get them away from a dangerous situation, or because if we're not able to pursue the case at the end, they're going to be in a dangerous situation, something like that. So let's kind of go through our template now. So we talked about the first bullet, which the testimony that the interim fees are necessary for the safety and welfare of the child. That's very important. The next one, you want to show that your client doesn't have the money to pay them, and it's your burden. If you're the one asking for attorney's fees, it's your burden to put on your client's lack of money. So put on how much money they actually make, what their bills are. It isn't adequate to just say, I don't have enough money. So that's your burden. It's not the other side's burden. So we talked about that if it's a community case, you have to show where that community money is. And if it's not a community case, you need to show that the other side can afford to pay it. And one thing that you might do is subpoena the opposing party, to attend the hearing, because they don't have to show up. You might assume they're going to, but they're not required to. So if you want them there because you need to question them about their ability to pay, then you need to subpoena them to show up. And you may need to ask both parties questions about the safety issues. Now, one thing that I saw done in a case that I think was pretty smart is the parties had produced photographs, and the photographs were to show the child being happy and doing happy things with the parent. But it happened that there were many pictures of very expensive cars in the photographs that either the child was in or next to, and that the child was next to a very beautiful, expensive house. And so I had a case where someone put those photographs on to show that the person really had the ability to pay. And that person was saying, no, I don't have the ability to pay. Those cars aren't titled in my name. But I think it was persuasive to the court, well, the pictures you gave us of you with a child, or you and the child in all these expensive cars. So that's a good tip. So look at the photographs you have. You could even hire a PI to go take pictures of the expensive cars and the expensive house. So people don't get to plead poverty necessarily effectively if their lifestyle shows they really do have a lot of money. And then any testimony or documents that you have showing that the paying the attorney's fees without an award of interim fees would negatively affect the children and cause them to go without in some important way. So that could also be, that they would go without, rather they wouldn't have health care available to them, or they wouldn't have, maybe they have special needs and they need a certain educational level, and that wouldn't be available to them. And so we need attorney's fees for those purposes. So it could be safety, like this guy or gal is dangerous, but it could also be safety. They need special education. They need special medical. So that's your evidence. Then we have in the template case law or briefing. And this is an area, especially on the modification front, that does not come up very often. The courts aren't going to be that familiar with the case law. So I think it would be helpful to bring cases or a brief to the judge so that the judge is educated on this standard of safety and welfare. And we have provided some that are attached to this template for your use. And it also, there's a statute, and we cite the statute here for you, so you'll have the statute handy. So you should be armed with this template to get your interim attorney's fees so you can help your client.